This is the playbook on FloridaHSFootball.com.
I'm Joshua Wilson, your host of the Playbook here on FloridaHSFootball.com. Before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube and turn on notifications so you're alerted whenever we post new content or go live. You can also listen on the go on your favorite podcast platform. We also like to thank the following partners who help make our shows and podcasts on FloridaHSFootball.com possible, including the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Foundation, Jaguars PREP, ScoreStream, the Florida High School 7v7 Association, BoxOut Sports, FirstDown PlayBook, and NFHS Network. Just to give you a quick overview of what the playbook is all about, it brings the best together of elements of our Blitz shows, especially our in-depth interviews with coaches and athletes. Moving forward, the playbook will serve as the home for interviews covering both tackle football and flag football from across the Sunshine State, involving both coaches and athletes. Coming up on our first episode of the playbook, we'll be joined by Clearwater Central Catholic head football coach Chris Harvey. Coach Harvey looks back at the 2025 season, takes us a trip down memory lane with the Miami Hurricanes, and shares what lies ahead as they prepare for the 2026 season at Clearwater Central Catholic. Once again, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, turn on notifications, or follow us wherever you get your audio podcast at. And remember, you can become a season ticket subscriber at FloridaHSFootball.com/season ticket, where special editions of our shows, including the playbook, will be available to subscribers from time to time before they are released to the general public. Joining us here on the playbook is head coach of the Clearwater Central Catholic Marauders. That is head coach Chris Harvey. And coach, appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule and with all what you do at Clearwater Central Catholic to talk to us and everything. And first, just kind of give our viewers and our listeners kind of a background of how you got into coaching and who influenced your coaching philosophy. And we'll go into a couple more questions about your background. That way people get to understand who Coach Harvey is, not just on the field, but off the field.
Well, I think that, coaching wasn't something that, I'm from a small town in West Virginia. It wasn't until I got to the University of Miami and was playing there and was able to play for some of the guys that had the privilege of that, coaching even became a thought. And then, the longer I was in the game of football and as much as, my life I can, devote to and accredit the game to, I just seen, all the things that I was able to see and all the other things that I was able to accomplish. And I just wanted to be somebody that could sort of provide those opportunities and experiences for other people. And I just felt like, if there was ever people that were able to, help build me outside of my dad, my coaches were those people. And I just hope that I could try to do the same thing for others.
No, and absolutely. And I mean, when you talk about your dad, you talk about a small town high school, you're from a small town. Talk about that because, coming from a small school, going to the big city, obviously that was a big change for you when you graduated high school.
I sort of laugh. I mean, we're considered a small school here in the state of Florida, and we have, 580 kids in our school, which is a part of a bigger area population wise. I mean, I'm from West Virginia, which is in Logan County. It's the coal fields of West Virginia. There's actually two now. When I grew up, there was one stoplight. There was less than 1,000 people that, lived in town, and a school of, I think probably 300 and some kids when I was there. So, growing up in a small town and still being able to have the opportunities I was to go to the big city of Miami and see the things that I did and be a part of the things that I was, then it was a special experience for me.
I mean, when you talk about that as special experience, I mean, talk about West Virginia football itself, because obviously some people have looked at it from the Florida perspective. Okay, what's football like in West Virginia? Kind of give us a little bit more insight about that. Compare it, and what are the comparisons and maybe the contrast to what's here in high school football in Florida?
Well, I think it's when as far as my football experience, football when I grew up in West Virginia was not even as good then as it is now. I mean, even if you just look at the two Division I schools in West Virginia with WVU and Marshall, there are probably more in-state kids on those two rosters now than there was, for 10 or 15 years in the 90s and early 2000s when I was coming through school and then in college. So it's improved, but it's still not the state of Florida. I think a lot has to do with just like population density. I think there's just as many people in Pinellas County here as there are in the entire state of West Virginia. So when you're talking about, a couple hundred schools that draw in very rural areas of West Virginia that draw into, from, 1 million people, as opposed to the 20 some schools that are here in Pinellas County that draw from more people. I mean, I think that's the reason why. I mean, that's just like, why football in South Florida is better than other places. It's just there's more people to draw from. So I think that's the biggest difference. I think that I will say this, I don't think there's a lack of love for football. I think Friday nights in West Virginia, I would not, some of the things that I try to build here at CCC are based off of some of the experience I had as a small-time football player in Southern West Virginia. I mean, like turn out the lights when you leave type mentality where, I go to, we played Venice this year, and when you go to a Venice football game, it's not as big in West Virginia, but the atmosphere is the same, where it's a small town, everybody is, in tune with what's going on Friday nights, and it just creates a great atmosphere for the kids.
No, and that's a good segue to what's your coaching philosophy. Obviously, what has been your coaching philosophy, over the years of becoming a coach, and then walk us through your coaching journey, how you got here to CCC.
Well, I think, a lot of times everybody thinks that the first thing that the coach wants to do is win. And I think, I'm getting a little bit older now, and I think it's just more and more important, especially when you see the landscape of, college football and just the world in general. I think my number one job or goal is just to build better men. I heard Paul Meckley one time, and a lot of people say it, you're working for 40, you're trying to invest in these kids for 4 years so that the next 40 years of their life, they can be productive citizens. And that's ultimately what we try to do from, the interpersonal side. I mean, we want to win. I think we want to win through consistency. We want to do, ordinary things extraordinarily well. I mean, we're not a big fancy team. We're not a flashy team. We're just a successful team because I feel like our kids, and not just our kids, our families, our communities buy into the expectations that we have for them. I mean, we're a year-round program. I mean, if you're not playing another sport here at CCC and you're a part of the football team, then as of, this week's our first week in the, 2026 season. So, our kids devote a lot of time, a lot of effort, and we're able to get a lot out of kids, and they're hardworking kids and talented kids. And so I think my coaching philosophy is just make sure we continue to throw into them and teach them that consistency matters, relationships. I mean, and you talk about my coaching philosophy that I have is just based off the people I've been able to be coached by and work with, from my high school coaches, William Tudicardi, who passed last year, and man, Harvey Arms was my junior high coach. And then I had the honor and the privilege of playing for two guys at the University of Miami. Art Keogh was our offensive line coach, and then Donnie Solinger was a long-time Miami high school coach at Southridge High School, and he was our running back coach and special teams coordinator. And just seeing the passion those guys had for the game and for the kids that they were able to work with, just, when that light went off and said, hey, man, that's something I would like to do, everything I've done to this point has just sort of emulated them, their personalities, their energy. I mean, I can't match them. They did a lot better than I've been able to, but I just try every day to have that type of energy for our kids. And hopefully that, I've done them some justice. And then my career, I mean, when I finished playing in 2004, I went back to West Virginia, coached high school ball for a couple of years. And then I had the privilege of, coaching for 11 or 12 years at the collegiate level. I was a defensive line coach at Glenville State College in West Virginia before I took an assistant strength coaching job for Florida State in 2007 under Coach Bowden. And I can honestly say, I think being a Miami guy, you would, if I didn't have the opportunity to go work for him for the years that I did, he's the leader of the enemy, but he is the epitome of what a coach should be. I mean, he is a kid first man. He believes he's a God first man, I should say. He believes in second chances. He believes in building up people and not tearing them down. He believes in opportunity and creating as many of them as you could. And, there was no person too small in Coach Bowden's football program. He treated everybody the same. His energy was always there. His desire to help people was always there. And that's why after all these years, all these people, the greatest that have ever played certain positions, thank him for what he was able to do. So after I left there, I went and worked for his son, Terry, at North Alabama for a season, learned a lot of football from him. My last college job was after that. I went back to West Virginia to a D2 school at Fairmont State where I was a defensive coordinator. So from 2005 to 2015, it's 11 seasons, I think it is, I was in college. And then my father-in-law, John Davis, was the head coach here. And I had planned on just taking a year off and then getting back into college football. So he asked me to bring my wife and my 2 daughters, who had traveled around the country chasing the college dream with me, to come back here just to spend some time with him. And then I've been here for 11 years. He retired 4 months after I got here, and then I took over 6 months after I got here, and the rest is history. So, some might say I got, tricked a little bit to bring the kids back, and I haven't left since. So,
You haven't left since, and it's hard to believe it's been that long already, Coach. And with that said, I know you've teased a little bit about Miami. We'll talk about that, the connection and all that, everything that's going on there, because obviously big game coming up here for Miami for the first time in over 2 decades for a national championship on the line. But we'll talk about that here coming up here in a few minutes. But kind of let's look back on the 2025 season, Coach, because I know for y'all, after 3 straight trips to the state championship game, 10-3 season, ended in the regional finals against Carrollwood Day. What was the biggest takeaway from the 2025 season for y'all, for the Marauders?
We haven't had a season yet that has ended the way we wanted it to. I think sometimes this thing that our goal has been to make it to the state championship game. Our goal has still been the same. Our goal is to win a state championship. I mean, no team in Pinellas County history has ever won that. I think that if people are honest with themselves, no program has been built, with the ability to do that outside of us in a long time. And I think that, we fell short this year. We lost to a good Carrollwood Day school that, other than the year before, they were a team that we would have had to have beaten in the playoffs, and all those games were close games. I mean, they're a very talented team. They're still a very talented team. I think that, in hindsight, when we looked at before last year, we had lost 17, 18 seniors. We had lost probably the best player that's ever played in this school, the best player that's ever played in this county. And anytime you have those losses, you probably think, for most programs, you think, okay, 10-3 is a great year. But we had just enough coming back. We had just enough experience coming back. We had a lot of talent coming back that, 10-3 didn't necessarily meet the standard that we have, but it sure was a heck of a good start for us moving forward. I mean, we got a lot of talent, talented guys coming back in key positions. We just were, we won the games that we were supposed to win. And for the first time in a couple years, we weren't able to sort of take that extra step to win those ones that took us the extra mile. I mean, if you think about the 3 losses we had, we got beat by Cardinal Mooney, who I will probably say is, a top 3 team in the state of Florida. We got beat by Venice, which Venice was a back and forth game, and it's been a back and forth game both years we played them. We were there in that atmosphere, in that environment, which is impressive if you've been there. And our guys handled it well. And I think we may have lost, and the season may not have ended the way we wanted it to, but the experience from that Venice game and then having to live through the disappointment of the Carrollwood Day game is something that has really energized their guys, because we do have a lot coming back. I think we returned 9 of 11 on offense, and I think 8 of 11 on defense. And of those guys, the majority were, freshmen and sophomores. So we're going to be very talented for the next few years. So we're excited about it. I think the year, hindsight, I don't ever say we overachieved, because I think the ultimate achievement for us is when we win the last game. But I think we did a good job preparing ourselves for what the future holds. So we're excited about that.
I mean, and the future holds. I mean, you got some, incredible guys. Obviously, some that are graduating, but your quarterback Case Barrett. I mean, obviously, he's junior. He's going to be his senior quarterback next year. Talk about what he did this year, because obviously, you got, if we know that any offense, it starts with the quarterback position, obviously. And so, talk about what Case did, and we'll talk about some of these other guys like Corey Sims, Tyreek Harris on the defensive side. I mean, you got ballers on both sides.
I think about Chase, and it's something we talked about the entire offseason, was that, we mentioned, the best player in CCC history and the best player in Pinellas County. When we lost Jershawn Newton, those were pretty big shoes to step into. And I think sometimes for kids that next quarterback isn't always given the credit he's given just for being able to attempt it. And I think Chase did a great job. I think Chase, he does some things even better than what Shawnee did. I think as far as, his ability to deliver the ball on time and get the ball we wanted to go. Not that he can actually do that a little bit better than what Shawnee could in high school. Now, I think that there was a confidence that got better as the year went on, and that's just natural for a new starter. I mean, we're talking about, Shawnee, who played and started for 4 years, 3 years as a starter, played in 2 straight state championship games, missed the third one because of injury. But when you speak of Chase, I think he did have a little bit of a head start
Mhm.
because in the year before, he had started in a regional final game when Shawnee was hurt. And then he started and played the entire state championship game against Chaminade in 2024. So, I mean, it was something that his experience sort of allowed him to get a head start. And I think as the year went on, he came into his own. He's a physical kid. I mean, he's a little under 6'1". He weighs, 220 pounds. He can run. He's physical. And that's what we do offensively. I think a lot of times people misunderstand what we try to be. Everybody thinks we're just a, you know, 4 yards in a cloud of dust. That's not us. I mean, we average, I think, 8, 9 yards of play. We've been balanced as far as run pass goes every year we've been here, and Chase was able to do that again. I think as an offense, we had close to 6,000 yards, and we rushed for close to 3,000 yards. I mean, he was very efficient in what we asked him to do. And I think that the greatest thing that Chase has moving forward is all those weapons that we have who are very talented. He returns all of them. I mean, outside of Corey Sims, a tailback, and we're a big 11 personnel tight end team, but we can go a lot of 10. We lost a tight end, but everybody else we have returning. And so he's got an offensive line up front, minus one guy that's got a lot of experience. So I think that, the future is very bright for him.
No, I've apologized for mispronouncing Chase's name there for a moment there, but for Chase,
it is spelled funny though, so that's normal. Yeah,
I'm probably not the first one that has
you're not
done
the
it.
first one.
No, but almost 2,000 yards passing, 20 touchdowns this year just through the air, and that's a very impressive stat. But also Corey Sims, you're running back, over 1,000 yards rushing there. Talk about the balance that Corey provided this year. Obviously, graduating, you lose a big talent right there in Corey right there.
Yeah, I mean Corey shows up from Mitchell, who he'd already had a great career at Mitchell as before his senior year, and then when he came here, you know, and I'm not saying anything bad about anybody else's football, but our schedule is just a little different. Let's just put it that way. I mean, and the most impressive thing about Corey is his 2 best games last year were against Venice and Cardinal Mooney. I think he rushed for 140 or 150 against both those guys. And so when you're a guy that, a lot of times people get caught up in numbers, but I think you better look at who you're playing before you start staring down numbers. But when you can be that, successful and physical. And everybody thinks that Corey's just a downhill runner. Corey's got some breakaway speed. He's got good vision. He's got good balance. And we were able to see those against the toughest competition that we had throughout the year. I mean, even against Carrollwood Day in the regional final game, we have a big defensive stop and we score, and then they score on a kickoff return. And then we ran stretch with the kid and he went 70, and it was like he was the fastest guy on the field. So for a guy that's, 5'10" to 190, 195 pounds, he plays the position. I say this all the time. We run the ball. That's what we do here at CCC. But he's also a guy that was able to catch the ball out of the backfield. He was a great protector. He would block in the run game when Chase was running the football, and he could catch the ball out of the backfield. So I think there was just a lot of things that we were able to see as his senior year went on that we're definitely going to miss. But also just to show that he's a ball player, and I can't wait to see what he can do next.
No, and absolutely. And that's just some of the offense. Obviously, defensively, Tyreek, if I got it right here. Yeah, Tyreek Harris. I mean, what a season he had. Over 100 total tackles, 3 sacks there going off the Yukon. I mean, you got, DJ Pouncey, obviously, a big defensive tackle right there. I mean, and you know a thing or two about being a lineman. So, talk about these guys that, and of course, DeJuan Davis, offensive tackle. So, these guys that, that contribute not just offense, but defense.
I think the 3 names that you just mentioned when you talk about Tyreek Harris and DJ Pouncey and DeJuan Davis is that, the last 4 years that those guys have been here, they have played in 58 football games. They were 47-11, I think. They ended up winning more games than any senior class in Pinellas County history. So they've been successful. And a lot of times people, it's either an offensive splash player, a receiver, a quarterback, but we've won a lot of games because of players like those. I mean, Tyreek made the move in the offseason. He had played for 3 years as a defensive end. He's the career sack leader at CCC. Well, we've got people that play defensive line on Sundays. So for him to leave here as a guy that has more sacks than anybody that's ever played here. But he did that pretty much before this year because, like you said, he only had 3 sacks because we moved him from an edge rusher to a linebacker this year. So he was playing a new position, the position that he's going to play at the next level. and he did it dang well. And then DJ Pouncey, he was their interior defensive lineman. I mean, he's a guy that he didn't miss a start, didn't miss a game for 4 years. And when we've had the success and had the talent that we've had, for him to be as, to be able to contribute as much as he did, it says a lot about him. And then DeJuan, I mean, if you've met DeJuan, he's probably one of the largest football players ever played in the state of Florida. The guy's 6'9", just a dominating force. Those guys were a lot of the reason we were able to have the success that we had. Unfortunately, I mentioned that we return a lot of guys, but those are 3 of the guys that we're going to have to replace. So it's an unenviable task to replace that much experience and success. But I think they've done a good job this past year of being mentors for our guys that came in, because we played with a lot of new faces from the year before, and it was, sort of exciting to see them lead and the other guys develop.
No, absolutely. And so what we're going to do right here, take a break real quick, and then we're going to come back and we're going to deep dive into something that I'm excited to talk about, because we're going to go reminiscing down the path a little bit. We'll take a quick break here, and then we'll be right back.
High school sports fans, follow your team live with a free ScoreStream mobile app. Download ScoreStream to get real-time scores, photos, and awesome video. Plus, follow your favorite teams and friends. Get real-time high school sports from ScoreStream.
BoxOut gives you the ability to create graphics at the speed of sports to highlight your athletic department, teams, and student athletes in seconds. Used and trusted by Notre Dame, Ohio State, UConn, Marquette, Georgetown, and many more of the top college brands in the country. If you want your school's brand to stand out through all the clutter, start your free demo at BoxOutSports.com.
All right, welcome back here on the Playbook. Here we're talking with head coach Chris Harvey of the Clearwater Central Catholic Marauders. And it's hard to believe that coach has already been there for over a decade. It just seems like time flies real quick. But Coach, I'm going to read some names off here for you to go into our next segment. I'm going to read some names off, and you just as I go through it. All right. How about this? Obviously, you mentioned Don Solinger, Mark Stoops, Art Kehoe. There's Randy Shannon, Larry Coker. Before that, Butch Davis. I'm going through the names here. Willis McGahee, Ken Dorsey, Frank Gore, Clinton Portis, Sean Taylor, Philip Buchanan, Jonathan Vilma, Mike Rump. Here's a couple other names. Chris Harvey, LeVar Scott. If you know LeVar Scott, head coach at Sebring. Man, Coach, what does that bring to you in memories?
I mean, you just mentioned coaches and members of the greatest college football team to ever play the game. I mean, I think it's, I think I read a stat today that the 2001 national championship team would have been 8-4 if the offense would have never scored a touchdown. That's how many times the defense would score. We played 2 top 10 teams that year and beat them by a combined score of 124-7. Like we mentioned, being from small town West Virginia, the first person I ever met at the University of Miami was a 6'8", 340-pound junior college transfer from Lackawanna Junior College in Pennsylvania named Bryant McKinney. And I can very clearly remember asking my dad, what in the world have I got myself into? We didn't grow people like that in Southern West Virginia. But, when you got there in 99, it was when Miami was coming off some rough years, some probation years, and Coach Davis had done a good job of rebuilding the arsenal. The locker room was, a lot. We knew then that it was improved. We had no idea that it was going to be what it was going to be a couple years later. I think that, there's always, conversation between the 2001 team and this team, or 2001 team and that team, as far as the greatest team ever. But the one team that's always a constant in that conversation is the one that's made up by those guys that you just mentioned. I mean, if you look at our coaching staff, our coaching staff was made up at one point in time of 9 different people who left and was either major college head coaches or NFL head coaches. I mean, between, Butch Davis and Curtis Johnson, who was at Tulane, Butch was at Cleveland, Coach Coker was our head coach, Randy Shannon was a head coach at Miami later on, Rod Chudzinski was a head coach in the NFL, Chuck Pagano was a head coach in the NFL. So we had a lot of coaches that were able to coach a lot of really good players. I'm 44 years old right now, and I have 3 former teammates who are already in the NFL Hall of Fame, and there's probably 2 or 3 more that will be going in over the next couple of years. So I think that when people talk about the differences between that 01 team and other teams that have had a lot of really good college players, I heard someone say the other day, and this is not a jab because Indiana's had a great year, is Indiana the greatest college football team of all time? Now, if they're able, which I just don't see it happen, to win, I think they'll be the most successful college football team of all time because they would have won 15 or 16 games in a year. But there's no way that you can say that a team is the best college football team ever while they're still playing on Saturdays, when that team you just mentioned had guys that not only played on Sundays, but were the best to play their positions on Sundays. So that's just something that we're going to have to hold court a little bit before we start making brash statements like that.
And maybe if you hold court, here's another stat we'll throw in there. The one national championship team that had the most players drafted in the NFL. I mean, you go back and the list is a mile long. It seems like. I mean, that tells you right then and there. It backs itself up when these guys get drafted.
Yeah, no doubt. I think we had a string of, a 5-year string where we had 5 people drafted in the first round, then 6 people, then 5 people, then 6 people, then 5 people. And you're talking about over a 3-year span where all those guys played on the same team. 17 first-round picks on the 2001 national championship team. 17. That's outrageous.
And that's crazy. And with that said, Coach, let's talk about firstly before we talk about some of the stuff with what's going to be happening come Monday night in Miami. Talk about the influences, both Larry Coker and obviously Butch Davis. Obviously a little short time, but Larry Coker more so. But the influences both of those coaches had on you directly.
Well, I mean, I played for Coach Davis for 2 years. I'm still. I always say this, the locker room that we had when I was at the University of Miami, it took a special breed of human being to be able to lead that group. I mean, it was, like I said, coming from West Virginia, I can remember sitting in the first team meeting and looking around. And, I mean, it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. But then when the door opened up and Coach Davis walked in, it was pure silence. And I think that was the culture and the discipline and the standard of expectation that he had set long before I got there and had went through those rough times. And when Coach Coker took over, I mean, he was a guy that he was definitely a player's coach. A lot of those guys, when they vouched for him to become the head coach, it was because they knew that he was going to be a leader, but he was going to be a leader that allowed his players to lead, which I think is a lot of how I try to coach now. I mean, you ask some of my younger players, they may not think that, but when you're in my program for a couple of years, you start to see that our successes aren't based on a call that me or my coaches make or a practice plan. It's our successes are based off of how much buy-in our teams have, and I think that was something that was unmatched for my guys. I mean, we're 25 years. Next year we'll celebrate the 25th anniversary of our 2001 national championship team, and if we are together this weekend, it'll be just like it was 25 years ago. And I think that's what it takes to be, and I'm just a lowly role player on the team, and those guys were always valued my importance and I understood my role. And I think that's what makes a successful team. So those 2 guys, Coach Coker, Coach Davis, I coach the way I do. I can accredit the success that we've had here based off of I emulate those guys that I had the privilege to play for back then.
By the way, long snapper is a position and it is an important position. I think that gets not talked about enough in a lot of aspects. But Coach, let's talk about, the college football national championship. It's going to be basically in Miami's backyard. It's at Hard Rock. It's basically at home for the Hurricanes, even though they're their away team. Talk about that. What does that mean to you with that game being there? And then we'll talk about what your views on Mari Cristobal has done, to change the Miami Hurricanes and make that team, maybe make them the envy again of the Sunshine State.
Well, I will say this. I think that Miami has always performed best in the underdog role. I mean, the one thing I can say, we speak 20, 25 years later about how great we were, but while we were there, we were the most hated show on earth. I mean, it was, whether it was the persona, the attitude, the bravado, the confidence, whatever you call it, but it was the swagger that is used a lot with Miami. But it was definitely something that people did not like. And I sit and I listen to a lot of these pundits or reporters or the Josh Wilsons of college football that start talking about how this game's going to go and how dominating Indiana has been. And, it is a home game. It is in Miami, but it's still the Miami Hurricanes. And it's for the first time in a long time. And I can honestly say, I think they are the Miami Hurricanes. I like what Coach Cristobal is doing of not trying. I mean, the connection with alumni is still there, but they're their own team. These guys have deserved and earned the right to be able to be on that stage. And I'm excited for them. It's the first time in a long time, nothing against those guys that have played since I left, but this is a group of guys who, from the outside looking in, do things the right way. They work hard. It wasn't something they just showed up. But in this day and era of college football, I mean, that's hard. It's hard to keep people locked in when things didn't go well the way they thought wanted them to go early in the year. I was in Dallas when SMU beat Miami, and I watched the game on television when they didn't play very well against Louisville. And I think that everybody's paying such close attention to the story that Indiana has made for them, and it is a great story. They're a great program. We've got a kid, our running back from a year ago, Sean Kuno, is there as a red shirt. So I was excited for them up to this point. But with that being said, I mean, that story is just a success. I think that the story that Miami has this year is something that people can use moving forward. Not life isn't something that's on the steady uphill all the time. There's going to be bumps in the road, and the most important gauge for your success is how you handle those bumps. And when you lose 2 games that you should not lose, right smack dab in the middle of a conference tournament, and you don't even get to go play for your conference championship, and then everybody in America is just amazed that they would put you in over Notre Dame, who you beat like a drum the first week of the season. And then you make a run in the playoffs, and people start saying the same things that they were saying for the first 8 weeks of the season about how talented they are and how good they are up front and how big they are and how explosive they are. Hey, guys, they're the same team that you had ranked as number 2 8 weeks into the season. So that whole story is a typical Miami Hurricane story. You just wait for the negativity to come, you wait for the doubt to come, and then you just show up and play. And I think that Coach Cristobal, who, crazy story, when Coach Cristobal was their offensive line GA when I got to Miami in 1999, he was with us for a year, and then he went and worked for Coach Schiano at Rutgers, who we played against the next year. And so, we were excited when they hired him. I thought that the guy before him, Coach Diaz, did a great job, and he was a Miami guy. But the difference in Coach Diaz is from Miami. Mario Cristobal is a Hurricane, and I think that is the difference. I think that's the one thing that drew the alums back, and I think that's the attitude that he, that personifies exactly what he wants to do. And I think we're at the point now we need to stop talking about what he wants to do and give the man the credit for what he's done. He's about to play for a national championship in his own backyard in front of, the most expensive ticket in the world. And
we talk about because you said on X that you would do everything to be there. You would do everything to be there, but those tickets are not. I think everybody might be listening to this podcast and this show, watching it on YouTube. A lot of them might be priced out of those tickets right now.
It's an expensive ticket. I'm not giving up hope yet, though. I'm still hoping to find a way. Even if I'm not in the stadium, a lot of us have gotten together and said, if we're not in the stadium, we're going to be in the city. I lived on Sunset in Miami when the Marlins won the World Series. And I can still remember people driving down past 3 a.m, just honking their horns and celebrating. So if I'm not in the stadium on Monday, I'm hoping I can be there blowing my horns in the streets of Miami. So,
no, absolutely. And boy, that's a fun being able to go down reminiscing lane there, talking about Miami Hurricanes and what the greatest, I would say, even in my opinion, and in terms of, I got a lot of opinions, the greatest college football team to take the field in modern history. And with that said, let's go into a little bit here real quick. Let's look ahead to 2026 with CCC. Already released the schedule. There's I'm looking at it here on the schedule here. If I'm counting my numbers correctly, you got how many games? Is it the full 10 or 9 actually?
We have our 10 regular season game schedule. We're still looking for a spring game and a kickoff classic, but our 10 regular season games are, it's becoming a trend around here. A lot of our coaches and our fans, why do you schedule that way? Well, a lot of the times it's not because we want to, it's because we have to. But in the end, I do believe in the whole iron sharpens iron. I think that's what's, kept us above a lot of the local teams, especially a lot of the private teams around here that haven't, chose to play us recently, is that we play the best. I think that, keeping teams like Venice on the schedule, who we are unfortunately unable to get them to come here this year. Their schedule was too full. They needed home games or whatever it was. But playing Mooney this year, but I'm sure you'll go through it. I mean, we played St. Francis on homecoming a couple years ago, which I caught a lot of flack for, because if we sit here long enough, they'll score again. But I think that, playing a good team, a good schedule. And I'll say this, I think that, we were beaten 3 times by Chaminade in the 1A state championship. But I think our schedule prepared and our team, the years we were beat, we would probably have won 4 or 5, even 6 of the other state championships. We just drew the straw of playing Chaminade. And 2 of those years they had what we called the Avengers. And, when you look at, college football right now, there's probably 8, 9, 10 of those guys that are starting for Power 4. I think they may have awarded Mendoza with the Heisman Trophy, which he's very, deserving. But the best college football player right now is Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, who we had to play 2 times in the state championship game. So I think that, our schedule in the past has put us in a position to where we were able to see the successes that we did.
And no, and with that schedule, obviously the reclassification brings y'all into Class 2A, going for the next 2 years at least. Never mind, and we won't even mention the district number, because that could change, because there's still a hot mess going on that we know that of some teams moving around and stuff like that still to this point. But as far as we know, your district is pretty much set, and I think it's pretty much going to stay that way. The way we're understanding this. Their district, I mean, this is a district that actually I think it's gonna be highly competitive when I mention these names that are a part of your district. Berkeley Prep, Boca Ciega, Calvary Christian, Lakewood, Tampa Catholic. I mean, goodness gracious, boy, if compared to the last few years, I mean half your schedule was already set right there when they handed it to you.
Yeah. We've for the last 3 years, we've had 1-team districts. So, it is a lot easier on my part, which is why we're able to release our full regular season schedule the first or second week of January. It was usually into March or April before I could track down those 9 games outside of our district. So we're excited about our district schedule. We played Berkeley and Tampa Catholic every year I've been here. They're very respectful rivals of ours. I mean, Coach Dom at Berkeley has done a great job. Mike Gregory back at Tampa Catholic, I consider him a friend of mine, and they do a great job. He'll get those guys rolling again. The exciting part, we played Bogey at Boca Ciega the last couple of years. They were one of the few public schools, them in Clearwater, that would, jump on our schedule, and we respected that. And Coach Smart's done a really good job there. He'll continue to do things there. But the exciting games, we had played Calvary for a long time, and then I think the 2019 season, when Johnny Newton was a senior, was the last time we played them, and that was just a playoff game. So, I mean, that's a school that's 2.5 miles from us. So we need to play each other. And then Lakewood, I mean, historically, in my time here, 10 years, the 2 best teams in Pinellas County have always been CCC and Lakewood, depending on who you ask. And we just never were able to get that game going. And so now the districts have allowed us to sort of meet up. We'll go there the next to last game of the year, and we're excited about it. I mean, watch Sunday, watch the NFL, watch the playoffs. You'll see a bunch of Lakewood grads that are running around there. So they've done a great job. They've been a very talented team, and I think it's a game that the county has asked for a long time, as far as the fans and the media, and so it's going to be exciting to give those. I mean, when you look at our entire schedule, when you add Cardinal Mooney, who we've played for years, Clearwater, which is another 3 miles down the road, we play, 8 rivalry games, and that just makes it exciting. A lot of our guys a lot of kids that are still here weren't here the last time that we played Calvary. We play St. Pete Catholic again, which we hadn't played them in a couple of years, so we're really excited about that one. So just playing teams that we haven't had the opportunity to play of recent, and then continuing some of those games that teams have stepped up and played us, and we're excited about it. And then we added here recently, we were supposed to play Palmetto in our spring game, and Coach Sanders called and saw that I was struggling with scheduling too, and he was. So we moved the spring game to the regular season opener, week 1, which we're excited about. He does a good job over there. And then I think the last game we added was against Port Charlotte. We actually have their quarterback, I can't think of his name, is a family member of one of our coaches here. So there's an element of excitement for all of our games next year that's going to draw a lot of attention. So we're excited about it. I think that it's just another example of how,
Yeah, I mean, this schedule's Yeah, and as I said, this schedule, you mentioned Palmetto, you mentioned Port Charlotte, this schedule's loaded, and obviously then there's the rivalry with Clearwater, which is now towards the end of the regular season, not kind of smacked in the middle of the season, but that's going to be a really fun game. I guess my biggest question now at this point here, Coach, what challenge does playing in Class 2A bring to y'all?
Well, I mean, the guy you have to beat is still the same guy you have to beat. I mean, they may have
shoving them down and following you.
They're there. I mean, they're not going anywhere. But fortunately for us, we're not either. I think there's some other teams. I think that the re-addition of TFA back into the FHSA after a couple year exodus, I think is a good thing. That they're a good program. They do some things. I think. When you just look across the board, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, even Carroll City may even be a 2A school. I'm not sure, and they've seen a lot of people that have moved into the area. But we're excited about it. I mean, it's definitely something that it still runs through one school. They can add as many people as they want, but until I know, Coach Jack Daniels at Cardinal Newman did a great job this year. I was so excited for him. We had beat them the year before in the state semifinal game, and he was he was such a great host and just a good man, and I love seeing him being able to get over the hump. Now, I am a little bit envious. I've told him this. When you get your butt whipped as many times as I did by Chaminade, I love to see somebody beat him, but I surely wish it would have been us. But he did a good job. So we're excited about it. I mean, I said this on Twitter or X or whatever it is a couple weeks ago. I think that Class 2A in the state of Florida is probably the best class in all. And there's a lot of good football in Florida, but from top to bottom, there's about 8 to 10 teams, or if not more, that could come out on top. So I'm excited about seeing how the next year goes.
No, absolutely, Coach. And with that said, I'm going to rapid fire some questions at you. You just take about 30 to 60 seconds to give me an answer on this one, Coach, because I'm curious to see what your answers are going to be on this one. And I have a feeling the first one's going to be a tough one. First, best player you have coached.
Yeah, well,
you're going to make some people mad, I think.
I'm not. I'm going to say the best player I've coached is Jersumpton Newton. And the reason I say that is because in my time here at CCC, I've coached 5 Newton brothers: Jervon, Jerquan, Jerwan, Jerzon, and Jershawn. So I refuse to say which one is the best, although in this question I may have answered it earlier. I coached the Newton brothers, and just collectively that family has been huge for this school. They still continue to be huge for this school. They represent us at the highest level of college football and NFL. If I had to pick one, I'd probably have to say the baby. Jershawn was he was a difference maker. I think that, putting him in the position where you're snapping the ball every play on offense, and everything that we did went through him. And I think he did, like we talked about Chase filling his shoes. I think that Chase being able to play with him for a couple of years is what's going to really propel him moving forward. But the best player would probably be Jershawn Newton.
No, absolutely. All right. One rule you would change in high school football.
Oof. There's a lot of rules. I don't know. I mean, I think, I don't know.
Is that one more like you probably need to come back later on and put it up into the front of a committee, probably.
Yeah. I mean, high school, I'll be honest with you, the rules aren't the problem. Following the rules are the problem. I still think we play the most competitive brand of high school football in the country. I think we have the best players and we have the best kids. So I'm going to say the politically correct answer. I don't think I would change anything as far as the rule goes.
Politically correct answer. Ooh, I like that. All right. Hey, Coach. All right. The toughest opponent you have faced as a coach. I mean, I'm sure you could deep dive and probably figure out what, you probably could have several answers here to this one.
Well, I mean, I think the obvious answer is Chaminade, Badana, but we've played them 6 times. I've been here 10 years, and they've ended my season 6 times, 3 times in the state semifinals and 3 times in the state championship game. I think the best team, if I had to point out a year, I would probably say would be the 2023, I think was the second state championship game, which is Jeremiah Smith's senior year with JoJo Trader and Jeremiah Smith and CJ Bailey, and you could go on. I mean, I liken that Chaminade team to our 2001 Miami Hurricane team. There's just a list of names that are all over college football right now, and that's why we called them, as I mentioned before, the Avengers. When we lined up, our kids played their butts off, but it was just a different level, and so that's probably the best team that we faced.
But let me branch that off real quick. Maybe in the regular season, would it be St. Francis Academy, maybe?
Oh, yeah. I don't count them, though. I don't know what I was doing.
Don't count them because they're not Florida.
No, I mean, I like I said, every year in, year out, I mean, I think the most consistent, most competitive games we have, we've always played Berkeley Prep the first week of the season every year. We had to change that year because of district schedules. Dom Sile is a great man, a great football coach, and he runs a clean program, does things the right way. And you can always tell when you show up to Berkeley week 1, which is the week he always wanted to play, his guys are going to be well prepared. So I think that if you ask me who I think one of the best coaches I've ever faced would be, it would, without a doubt, it'd be Coach Sile would be right up there at the top.
No, absolutely. And with that said, Coach, I appreciate you joining us here on the Playbook here on FloridaHSFootball.com. And best of luck to your Miami Hurricanes. I know it's been a long time removed since you took your last snaps there, but man, for you as an alum, I'm sure it's very exciting. And of course, best of luck for CCC heading into the offseason workouts. I know this is the most, some people say, oh, well, no, it's what's important. It's, the games on the field. No. Where the important part is it's done in the offseason. It's done in the workouts, because obviously if you can't do you ain't getting stronger, you ain't going to be strong out on the field.
No doubt. Our season started Monday, and we're excited about it. We got a good group in here, and the future is bright on Haynes Bayshore.
Oh, absolutely. Appreciate it, Coach. Thank you so much.
Go Canes.
We appreciate head coach Chris Harvey joining us here on the Playbook here on FortHSFootball.com, reminiscing about Miami Hurricanes football and looking back on the 2025 Marauders season, and then looking towards ahead at what 2026 is going to bring as they move up to Class 2A. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button at Florida HS Football and hit that notification bell. Or if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, we say thank you as well, and hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform as well. Well, all right. Until next time, this has been the Playbook here on FortHSFootball.com. I'm Joshua Wilson, and we'll see you next time.